And now we're going live on YouTube. And there we are, live streaming on YouTube. So welcome everybody. You've got Bruce Rawles and Lynn Johnson here, and we are reading The Absence from Felicity, um, a book by Dr. Kenneth Wapnick about the scribing of A Course in Miracles, Dr. Helen Schuckman, and all the folks that um, are therein as well. Um, so good morning, Bruce, again.
Good morning, Lynn. And I was thinking, we're at page 275 after a little over a year of reading this together on Saturday mornings. So I'm thinking, gee, before next summer, we might have to start thinking of a new book to read or new.
Think of a new book to read. And
Yeah.
you know what's so funny, Bruce? When we first started doing this, I thought this is going to be a lot easier and quicker because, when you read the course in the deep dive, we parse out everything and re-relate and go and look at other parts and
Uh-huh.
so but this is a story. So, we're just going to probably just kind of breeze through this and be done with it and oh gosh, less than a year. Uh,
Less than 2 years for a pretty sizable book, actually.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's true.
I was
And
just,
and I just didn't realize how deep this was.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I think we first together noticed it, and when we were, you know, began rereading it a year ago, it was like, well, yeah, the initial read was like, wow, what a great biography about Helen, and now it's like, what a great story about our resistance.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's so simple, and now it's just it's like a love story. Jesus and Helen. Of course, we haven't really gotten into her relationship with Jesus other than him just telling her straight up, "Look at what you're doing here." He did not pull any punches. He does not pull any punches with her. I mean, he is really gentle, but this whole thing is it really is very personal, and it's what's happened now is it changed the way I read the course now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because now when I'm reading the course, I'm actually seeing, oh, this is Jesus talking to Helen and telling Helen this is, what you think and how you see things. And, here's a better way to see things, a better way to understand. But of course, because we have joined minds and really there is only one ego, no matter how many tricky facades it puts on, and it does the same thing over and over and over again. So he's talking directly to me too, and
Absolutely. Otherwise, why would we be reading it, right?
exactly. I'm it just is amazing to me. I'm very just overwhelmed by what the whole this whole thing. Before we get started reading, before I forget to tell you, in case I haven't already, is that I'm going to be I'm not going to be here with you August 31st or September 7th. I might be with you September 7th. I've just come home from Scotland.
Oh,
So
fun, fun, fun. Well,
so
I'm
I'm
going to
just,
be at the School for A Course in Miracles retreat the 29th of August through the 2nd of September. So I'll be unavailable that weekend too. But so we'll have like a 2 week hiatus, it looks like.
yeah, like a 2 week, yeah, and that'll be great. I mean,
Okay, okay.
that's I don't know how we're gonna fill it in, but everything will fill in as it should. So,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
just yay, going to Findhorn. So
oh, fun.
yeah, so I'm pretty excited. Gary was gave a talk there at Findhorn, so and he said it was really nice.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking forward to that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Gary Renard.
Uh-huh. I kind of figured you meant that by the context. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Gary, okay. Um, so So you want me to start reading or you want to read?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so, and I'm not sure where you are in your book.
Do we want to back up a paragraph?
I'm thinking to back up because she's referring to something that I hadn't. Okay, we were talking about Descartes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Descartes before the horse, right?
Descartes before the horse. Descartes engaged in a very interesting teaching procedure, and one from which he himself learned a great deal. He began with doubting the existence of everything except himself. And is this Jesus talking to Helen right here?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is. It
okay.
is. Uh-huh.
Okay, so Jesus talking to Helen about Descartes.
Uh-huh.
I bet they were friends. Okay. No. Um, Descartes engaged in a very interesting teaching procedure, and one from which he himself learned a great deal. He began with doubting the existence of everything except himself. He insisted that his own existence was not open to doubt, and rebuilt his entire thought system on the one premise: I think, therefore I am. It is noteworthy that he arrived at accepting the entire system he originally doubted solely on the basis of this one piece of knowledge. There was, however, a distinct shift in his own perception. He no longer really questioned the reality of what he perceived because he knew he was there.
Hmm.
So, so and it's really interesting as I'm reading this. I read the same thing in Joel Goldsmith the other day, except with a different ending.
Hmm. He knew that he wasn't there.
Yes,
Well, I guess it
that
depends on the who or the what is that's in the first person there, right?
right, but Joel started with doubting that everything you ever thought about yourself, just as lesson
Right.
189, let go
Uh-huh.
of everything you ever thought about anything, everything you thought you
Right.
knew, nothing I see here means anything. That's exactly what he suggests that we do, is
Uh-huh.
just start by just looking at everything that you think you know and bring it to doubt.
Yes.
Um, and by bringing it to doubt, you recognize that the only thing that's constant and real is the I am, the sense, the person that you are. I think, therefore I am. Um, uh, but he arrived as accepting the entire system he originally doubted solely on the basis of this one piece of knowledge. So he came and said, so all these things that I doubted I know now are real. I think this is what this is saying. All these things I doubted, I know now are real because I'm there. I'm here.
Hmm.
So Jesus is saying he no longer really questioned the reality of what he perceived because he knew he was there. Whereas when we go through and let go of everything we ever thought we ever knew, we come to the place where we know that we are real and the thing that we perceived on the externally was not.
Right.
See what I'm saying here?
Hmm.
Makes sense?
Yes. Yeah. If everything is just one thing, then all we have to do is question everything that seems to be not that one thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, there's so
yeah.
many ways to come at it, but that might be one variation of it, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Jesus is asking us to do in A Course in Miracles. That's what Joel Goldsmith asks us to do. And Jesus is telling Helen right here, this is what Descartes did that, but then at
Mhm.
the end, he he turned around and said uh, that it must be real because I am. So, however you want to see that, I'm not sure. So anyway, that was the backup paragraph. So Jesus continues. We mentioned before that Bill is not too sure of this, and that is why we suggested that he concentrate on Lord, here I am. A teacher is unlikely to be affected unless he begins with being there.
Mhm.
Bill, this is not really open to question. You will lose all your fear of teaching and relating in any form once you know who you are. There is no point whatever in remaining in the prison of believing that this is up to you. You do not exist in different lights. It is this belief which has confused you about your own reality. Why would you want to remain so obscure to yourself? I can't believe this Jesus just straight up talking to Bill, saying, don't you see you're doing this to yourself?
which is really on every page of the course. Just,
It is.
I mean, one of the more, you know, clear and obvious and blatant expressions of that is, the secret of salvation is that you're doing this to yourself. And like, everything that seems to be an imposition, a grievance, a problem, an issue, a challenge, an imposition that is unfair. I I brought this on not by necessarily consciously on this level, planning every little detail, but on some other level, perhaps so, but most importantly, on the where it really counts, I chose the wrong teacher. And if I listen to Holy Spirit and follow, you know, follow where his metaphoric virtual finger is pointing back to the blue dot in Ken's chart, the decision maker, I could return my mind to that place where there's that little switch in my mind that has the two positions. One is ego, one is Holy Spirit. And if I just the slightest little nudge, not even a physical nudge, it's just a mental, oh, what if I were to choose Holy Spirit instead of the ego? And suddenly everything shifts.
Yes.
Everything is different.
Yes. Yes. And it doesn't shift, it doesn't change what
The
appears to
dream, right?
be the physical reality in front of us. It
Exactly.
doesn't
Yeah, yeah,
change that.
right,
It changes how we perceive it
right,
and what effects we think it has.
right.
Uh, you know,
It bypasses the ego's incredibly sophisticated interpretation, or really misinterpretation machine, and and sees everything as completely neutral, which is what the course keeps
yes,
telling us is the truth. And it reminds us that the only way we're able to imagine something that's not completely benign and neutral is because we've listened to the ego's polarizing propaganda that said, "Oh, it's possible that there could be good and bad things in well, I'm not going to call it illusion," says ego, but let's call it the real world." And nobody else questions that because we're all following the same hypnotic trance. We're all
the,
we're all marching to the same dirge in the zombie apocalypse of ego's craziness.
yeah. That's crazy, is right. And
Mm.
and uh and I love Jesus just pointing out the only reason that these things seem to be happening is because you don't know who you are.
Mhm.
And once you know who you are, there there is none of these things uh have any effect because they're neutral. It absolutely neutralizes everything. So where he says there's no point whatever in remaining in the prison of believing that this is up to you, you don't exist in different lights.
Mhm.
It's this belief that you confused about your own reality. And that just is remind me of today's workbook lesson, which is now I will seek and find the peace of God. And um, he says, in peace was I created, in peace do I remain. It is not given me to change myself. I can't change myself.
Mhm.
How merciful is God, my Father, that when He created me, He gave me peace forever. Now I ask but to be what I am. And can this be denied me when it is forever true? No, now I'm just asking just to be what I am. And then peace is here because I see it from I see it with the real light. I'm not seeing it in darkness. I'm seeing it in light. And in light, everything is perfect. There's nothing can harm anything. Everything is neutral. The world itself is neutral. So yeah, this is really beautiful. Okay, so continuing with the book. This important message for Bill, uh, though obviously for everyone, this is Ken
Hmm.
speaking,
Hmm.
emphasizes the all or nothing nature of the course's teachings, whose principles apply to all people in all situations, without exception. It is this all-inclusive nature of forgiveness that makes it so threatening a principle to the ego thought system that always attempts to separate out and make exceptions. And again, this is what the forgiveness does. It just wipes out all exceptions. It neutralizes, absolutely neutralizes everything. It's pH 7 now. Um,
Totally neutral dreams,
totally
right?
neutral.
If if we're still invested in getting upset about dreams, then we just have to remember, well, I'm participating in what William Shakespeare would say was much ado about nothing, because everything that I've given meaning to, like those early workbook lessons suggest, really hasn't happened in truth. And even though that's challenging to wrap our heads around, we can certainly just notice that we're on some level voluntarily dispiriting ourselves and voluntarily, you know, choosing to be upset. And it's when that little aha moment clicks in and we realize it's a choice. It's not something that's foisted upon us. It's like, well, if the locus of control is my mind, or whether I'm upset or not, it's not going to change what's going on in the world, but it's certainly going to change how I think about the world and how I feel about the world. And that I do have some say over. In fact, I have complete say over ultimately by my choice of teacher, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that and again, the what is forgiveness? I mean, that is what looks and waits and judges not.
Hmm.
That's this is it. You just look, wait, and don't judge.
Yeah.
And you do go into that neutral place where then you don't see, nor are you concerned about the possibility of differences. It doesn't matter. These things become meaningless. Just and again, we spend our entire lives trying to hone our senses so that we can sense differences and be more acutely aware of different differences. And
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world, it's important to be able to tell the difference between a rope and a snake.
Right.
That's an important thing in the world, and those keen senses, judgments, we spend our life honing those things. So now, what we're trying to do is just relax all those things. And it's not that, obviously not the difference between a snake and a rope. What it really is the difference between, something that can harm us and something that uh, is harmless.
Hmm.
And we begin to see that everything is harmless,
Completely harmless.
completely harmless.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's not what the course doesn't ask us to deny our physical experience, but it does ask us to bring it to the thought system of the Holy Spirit for, really deconstruction, which is really, we don't have to, we don't need crowbars and sledgehammers like on the HGTV shows that my wife watches, where they tear apart, tear out walls and kitchen cabinets and stuff
I
like
love
that.
those shows.
But all we have to do is just see, oh, I'm dreaming. What do I need to do to make things in a dream unreal? I just have to wake up from them. Oh yeah, that's not too tricky. I
No,
need do nothing. I just need to undo by waking up. Yeah.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And sooner or later we will be tired of sleeping.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
I'm
Yep.
I'm I think I'm tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Do you ever sleep so much that you're just tired of sleeping? And
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like
For sure. For sure. Yep.
it's all right. All right. So the dictation then continued through, though still apparently without shorthand notes, So just Helen just saying this straight out to Ken, and Ken typing, or not Ken, to Bill, and Bill typing it up as she said it. The dictation then continued, though still apparently without shorthand notes, with the material on the last judgment and the authority problem, currently found near the end of chapter 3. And then this personal note. It is essential that the whole authority problem be voluntarily dismissed once and for all before his, Bill in brackets, course. Neither of you understands how important this is for your sanity. You are both quite insane on this point. This is not an in parens, this is not a judgment. It is merely a fact. No, Helen, you should use the word fact here. This is just as much a fact as God is. A fact is literally a making or a starting point. You do start from this point, and all your thinking is inverted because of it.
Mhm.
End of parens. So here's an aside note. Jesus is telling Helen in the midst of the dictation, which is and apparently just spoken um, without notes. So yeah, so
So the insanity that Jesus is pointing out on Helen and Bill is what he's pointing out on all of us. And from the perspective of perfect oneness, any belief in duality or separation is clearly insane. But we don't want to see that. And that's why, ego's always trying to make up alternative facts. It wants to claim a little bit of sanity, and yet there is none in that entire thought system.
yeah, yeah, well, the ego is just trying to keep us comfortable, so it's going to come up with whatever it can to make calm us down so that we don't look at it anymore. So
Right.
give us some kind of excuse. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and Jesus just saying, hey, time to stop it. Honestly, just
And
stop it.
new heart therapy.
A new heart therapy.
Stop it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. So the flow of dictation picked up again. This is Ken speaking, writing. The flow of dictation picked up again with the section that currently concludes chapter 3, but is now at the end of the first paragraph of this section was originally written like this. Nothing, this is from the text, from the original. Nothing made by a child of God is without power. It is absolutely essential that you realize this because otherwise you will not understand why you have so much trouble with this course and will be unable to escape from the prisons you have created for yourselves. And in parens, this was an error. You should have said made. So, okay, so right off, he's even correcting because she wrote created,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he's telling her, nope, you should have said made. There's a difference between made and created.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, yeah. So Ken says this last comment reflects the important distinction Jesus establishes in the course between the words make and create. The ego makes, projecting its own illusions, while spirit, our true identity, can only create, extending the truth that is itself. A little bit later, Jesus commented on Helen and Bill's authority problem. And so this is Jesus again. You and Bill still believe that you are images of your own creation. You are split with your own souls, in brackets, the mind, on this point. And there is no resolution because you believe the one thing that is literally inconceivable. That is why you cannot create and are afraid to make or produce. You, Helen, are constantly arguing about the authorship of this course. This is not humility. It is a real authority problem. You, Bill, really believe that by teaching, you are assuming a dominant or father role, and that the quote father figure unquote will kill you. This is not humility either.
Mm.
Wow.
Well, we
Uh,
all have an authority problem because we all are trying to either deny what the course is telling us in one way or another. Sometimes, often after we've been studying it for a while, sometimes more subtly than others. But or we're just basically blatantly ignoring it, or as what seems to be the case for most people, we don't even go anywhere near it, which we probably could say about most of the 8 billion people, give or take, on the planet, right? But or things that are similar to pure non-dual teachings of one sort or another. But ultimately, on some deep intrinsic level, we all know that is the source of our authority problems. We think we threw perfect oneness under the bus. Well, it's a bug too. It's a bug in our software, and we think we pulled off this impossible crime. And so, in order to keep an identity that we still think is we're deriving some kind of benefit from, we have to keep this facade of an authority that's apart from the authority with a capital A, which is our creator. And so that's why we think we need to make stuff. And we were making stuff up all the time. We made up this world in order to escape from the guilt that we made up and the entire thought system of guilt. Right?
Yeah, and we continue to make a world. I mean, that's what's so insane is, as we keep doing it, it just seems more and more real to us. And again, when I think about a newborn baby, they have no world. They don't know anything when they first come into the world. They have to learn to discern and
Hmm.
judge and
Hmm.
and and decide. There's so many things that they have to learn in order to survive in this world of illusion. But in the state where they just came into the world, none of that existed. And we're literally trying to get back to that state, not where we don't see the world, because but Jesus tells us in the real world you're not going to see these things.
Hmm.
But we're trying to get back to that state of non-judgment, just not making any decision about anything, and just letting the Holy Spirit run everything. um but uh you know babies develop, they come with an ego, and they develop it as they grow. And and 70 years later they're sitting here going, gee, none of that was real. Okay,
Hmm.
so and the idea that Jesus is getting on Helen about arguing about the authorship of the course. And I just saw somebody put something on Facebook, and they're discussing, the lies of Helen or something of that nature. And one of them was that she denied that it was Jesus who was the author of the course. Like, she didn't really know, and you know what? We don't really know either. She identified it as Jesus, and we identify it as Jesus, but Jesus never really existed. That Jesus is a fictional character in the story,
Well,
and it
it's sort of
really
like
is.
the same argument about people who dismiss the content of Gary Renard's work because of the form, because they say, well, that's kind of outrageous that two ascended masters, quote unquote, should appear on his living room couch and download all this information, to him, and yet it's just as outrageous to say that you and I are individuals that could sit on another hallucination that we call a couch with
Yeah.
our hallucinatory bodies in a hallucinatory world, which which of course is an Eastern thought, if you will, but the course really draws from the Eastern mysticism of non-duality, as well as then adding the Western psychology of Freud and certainly Shakespeare and Plato and all things that have become Western thought. But it's really the best of all those worlds, because it basically says I not only can identify the problem, but there's also a solution to that unconscious unfounded guilt, and that's forgiveness. And that's what undoes our identification with the illusion, And so there's a way out of it rather than just, oh, now I see see it's an illusion. Now what? Now what am I supposed to do? Now just be depressed? No, no, there's a way out of it actually. Not as physically escaping, but mentally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
truly escaping.
Yeah.
And that's what just thinking about this whole idea of Gary and his teachers, and there's controversy, and there are people who I mean, either way,
Oh, no matter how you
but
slice or dice it, right?
right, but to me, of course, uh, th people do not understand the 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 extent of the illusion and the illusion of time.
Right.
You know, it's all part of the story. Do you think that Art and Persa were real people that lived in a real time in the future? Do you think Shakespeare was a real person who lived in a real time in the past? Do you
Hmm.
these are it's all part of the story. It's
Right.
all part
Right.
of the script and the illusion. So I think for me, the whole Gary Renard books and uh, everything that all the adventures of Art and Persa and Gary and Jesus and Buddha and um, all of those adventures uh, were just as true as any of the other adventures of any of the other of the character of Lynn.
Right.
So when I saw that and I realized that, this whole thing of time is, it's just a story about, how the distance between here and there and it's all part of the story that just is here for me to look at and, make my decision about what I want to see. So I learned I really gained a lot of cosmology, I guess, um, from listening and reading Gary Renard's books. And for me it was a great favor. And now other people may read it and say, well, I don't know any really much of anybody that's read those books that hasn't said, now I understand what A Course in Miracles is talking about. Anyway, enough about Gary. So anyway, let's move on.
Sounds
Because
good.
it's the authority problem, exactly what Jesus is talking about here. We are not rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. We're trying to. We don't know what we're doing. I don't even know what we're trying to do, other than just keep up the story.
Yeah.
It's like your favorite TV show. You don't want it to end. We're looking at Northern Exposure, that TV show so long
Oh, I
ago.
love that show. That was a great
Yeah,
show.
and
Yep.
and
Yep.
and were you sad when it ended and there was no more of it?
Well, I've kind of come to accept the fact that all those wonderful miniseries, have a finite span,
Mhm.
and to enjoy them without taking the uh, the beginnings and endings too seriously.
Yeah, yeah, but
If
but but still,
but so that's certainly a process of learning to appreciate the uh, the lifespans of everything that appears in space and time, and just learn that it's like, well, that isn't the essence of the inspiration behind a lot of these things, including the existence that we think we have. um, there really is an awareness that transcends the whole space-time dream, and that's what we really are drawn to. um, and until we look at how we're also still enamored with what the ephemeral stuff that comes and goes, and then just see that that has never worked for us. We'll still try to do the mixed bag thing. We'll
yeah,
still
yeah,
try to ride two horses at the same time, one foot on one and one on the other, and
yeah.
it,
Unless
it,
you
it might
jump
work
off
for a
that
while,
dam.
unless you've got two very well trained horses and on pretty even terrain. It's probably not going to work too well.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Uh, what is it the Dove said that Jim Morrison said at the um, uh, uh, Madison Square Garden? When I sit on the fence, it hurts my privates. But
Yeah,
he
I
didn't
think
say
so.
that.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the real reason Humpty Dumpty fell.
It could very well be.
Although I think he was riding side saddle in all the photos I saw.
I would hope so. I don't know which side because he was round. But
Really.
oh my God, we're silly. Okay,
Yeah.
keep
Oh,
your
yeah.
read. How about you start reading?
Sure, sure. Let's see. And we're at every symptom.
We're at no returning
Oh,
to
God. Okay.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
That right.
changed the
Oh, right,
page.
right. Yes, of course. Returning to Bill's class at Columbia, Jesus dictated the following lengthy passage, later incorporated into chapter 3, and then chapter 4 in the discussion on teaching and learning. It's funny. I was just thinking about teaching and learning this morning. I was, as usual, listening to one of Ken's audios while I was out for a walk through my AirPods and my phone. And I was thinking how, Ken has said in so many of his talks that we're teaching and learning all the time, including this one I was listening to this morning. And so the idea of being a teacher or a learner in this world is given far too much emphasis because everyone 24/7 is both a teacher and a learner. And I think that's such an important point because we're either teaching ego and learning ego at any given moment, or we're teaching Holy Spirit's atonement classroom and learning that at any given moment. But that's 24/7. So it's not a matter of whether we will teach or learn. It's what we will teach and learn. I think that's such a helpful reminder. It's not
So
like
what?
it's a from the course's perspective, it's not like it's a thing that we turn on and off. The only thing that changes is which thought system we're teaching and learning.
Yeah, 24/7, which is true, then in our dreams are the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And how many of our dreams, how many of your dreams have you actually consciously and awarely
Oh, well, that works for me.
awarely,
I'll
I'm
add that to
making
my
up words every day.
I'll add that to my dictionary.
Yeah, but in I have practiced in trying to affect my dreams and practice forgiveness when
Uh-huh.
things seem to be going wrong. It I've been able to do it, on
Yeah.
occasion, and that's pretty astounding. And of course, I don't remember all my dreams, so I don't know. But the mind is always active,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
doing something. So
Uh-huh.
I think we teach and learn. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, go on.
Okay. So let's see, where was I? All right. So uh I'll start that sentence over again. It's actually the first sentence, isn't it? Look, I'll restart again. Returning to Bill's class at Columbia, Jesus dictated the following lengthy passage, later incorporated into chapter 3 and then chapter 4 in the discussion on teaching and learning. The message explains for Bill what is behind his fears of teaching or professing and teaches him that he is free to make another choice, changing from identifying with his ego's thought system of separation and loss. There's the choice.
Yeah, was that
There,
what you were just talking about? That you were looking at teaching and learning from chapter 4?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, Ken and the course are very consistent because Ken, was such a clear and transparent channel for the course's metaphysics, and what a great inspiration he is, not only in this book but in so many of others of his works. Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Ken. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Okay. Therefore, the purpose of Bill's class, which Jesus emphasizes, was, quote, very carefully chosen, unquote, for him and is an, quote, assignment, unquote, was to provide an opportunity for him to change his mind and accept his true function of becoming what the teacher's manual would later call a, quote, teacher of God, unquote, a teacher of forgiveness. In the passages that follow, I have omitted the dictated material that was substantially unchanged and appears as is in the published course. Okay, I'm going to read the two footnotes here for 70 and 70. Well, I guess 71's farther. I'll just read the footnote 70 in the print version I have, which is in reference to the quote assignment unquote Bill had. And the footnote says, in reality, of course, Jesus, in parentheses, or the Holy Spirit, does not choose for us or make assignments. Our minds do the choosing and assigning, either with the ego or the Holy Spirit as our guide. However, since our experience is often that the Holy Spirit is outside us, Jesus frequently spoke like that to Helen and Bill and to all of us in the course. Well, that's a really important footnote, isn't it? I mean, because it's so easy to think that you know, and I think course students oftentimes, and myself included, both historically and I'm sure more than I want to care to admit still, think, well, if I just trust Holy Spirit, everything will be taken care of for me. You know,
Ooh, that's a
that's
huge difference.
yeah. I mean, because but also the kind of implied assumption in that is, well, that means that the world will magically become better. And the course never suggests that the world will become better. It just basically says that what's important is how I see the world will change, and that's what needs to change. But changing the space-time dream, this in the trying to make a better scripts for a better outcome in the dream is sort of like missing the whole point of the course. It's like the point is to wake up from the dream, right? And doing it at our own rate, gently, patiently, and not feeling any sense of coercion or um, you know extortion or any other force, because it's totally voluntary. It's a completely authoritative course, but it's not authoritarian. Still there, Lynn?
Yeah, I muted myself.
Oh, okay. I kind of
And,
figured you might be.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the idea that we are being extorted into it. Well, actually, we're punishing ourselves every day for not doing it and don't even recognize it. I mean, we're just like hitting ourselves over the head with a frying pan and
Right.
going, man, I just don't understand why my head hurts and what's that banging noise I keep hearing.
Really? Who's responsible for this? Bang, bang, bang.
What is going on here?
He said to the empty room except for him and the frying pan.
Oh.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
every
and
symptom you're at.
oh, there we go. Yeah. Every symptom which the ego has made involves a contradiction in terms. This is because the mind is split between the ego and the soul, so that whatever the ego makes is incomplete and contradictory. Consider what a quote speechless professor unquote means as a concept. It literally means a non-professing professor or a non-speaking speaker. Well, there's the neutrality and the idleness of the ego, that I think they were making a point about Bill's excuses for himself and his authority problem. Yeah, this particular flavor of it, right? Okay. Untenable positions such as this are the result of the authority problem, which, because it accepts the one inconceivable thought as its premise, can only produce ideas which are inconceivable. Bill may claim, and has certainly done so in the past, that the professorship was thrust upon him. This is not true. He wanted it very much and also worked hard to get it. He would not have had to work so hard either if he had not misunderstood it. And then here's footnote 71, which I started to read earlier. Now it relates to what I just read. See above page 87 for Bill's quite different interpretation of the circumstances of acquiring his professorship. So anyone has the print version can go back to page 87 for a review of that topic. And then let's see, do you want to pick up from there?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Um, so this is Jesus. The term profess is used quite frequently in the Bible, but in a somewhat different context. To profess is to identify with an idea and offer the idea to others to be their own. The idea does not lessen, it becomes stronger. The teacher clarifies his own ideas and strengthens them by teaching them. Teacher and pupil, therapist and patient are all alike in the learning process. They are in the same order of learning, and unless they share their lessons, they will lack conviction. If a salesman must believe in the product he sells, how much more must a teacher believe in the ideas which he professes? But he needs another condition. He must also believe in the students to whom he offers his ideas. Wow, and that's a huge.
Mhm.
This is a huge concept that in the course that 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 Jesus even says, I learned my lessons and I believe that you can too because you are just like me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is the essence of being a teacher is having faith in your students that they can learn. And they will learn that they are equal to you in their ability to learn. This is beautiful. Jesus continues. Bill could not
Can,
be
can
afraid to.
we
Go
stop
ahead.
there for a moment? I
Yeah,
was I was just going to say, must believe in his students. Well, I think implied there is believe in the innocence of of everyone that we meet, which because kind of like in the teacher's manual, it says, we're all students and we're all teachers. Well, and then same with the psychotherapy pamphlet, we're all therapists and we're all patients and for each other. And we take on both roles all the time in every interaction we have. And so, believing in our students or believing in our patients, believing in our teachers, believing in our therapists, is really the same thing. It's just everyone that seems to be outside, I have to see the innocence in them in order to experience it in myself. They're really mutually inclusive um, ideas that we have to accept for it to be complete and effective. If I leave anyone out, including myself, of that perfect innocence, I'm not believing in the truth of who I'm relating to, and therefore I'm not believing in the truth of myself.
yeah, yes. And what kind of a teacher doesn't believe his students are worthy of learning what he's
Exactly.
teaching?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Worthiness is the perfect word, isn't it? I mean, because
yeah,
because I mean the ego's whole premise is that it pulled off the impossible crime, and therefore the unconscious, unfounded guilt said worthiness is out the window. And we spend most of our lives grappling with that, mostly unconsciously, and trying to make the world fill that empty hole in that worthiness equation. And there's really nothing in the world that ever can possibly do that for us. But we darned if we don't keep trying until we realize, this just really isn't working. Or as
yeah.
Dr. Phil said, how's that working out for you?
How's that working for you?
Yeah,
I love it. Okay, let's continue. We've got about 10 more minutes left.
sure.
So Jesus again talking to Helen. Bill could not be afraid to teach unless he still believes that interaction means loss and that learning means separation. He stands guard over his own ideas because he wants to protect his thought system as it is. And learning means change. Change is always fearful to the separated because they cannot conceive of it as a change toward healing the separation. They always perceive it as a change for further separation because separation was their first experience of change. Bill, your whole fear of teaching is nothing but an example of your own intense separation anxiety. Wow, which you have handled with the usual series of mixed defenses in the combined pattern of attack on truth and defense of error, which characterizes all ego thinking. You insist that if you allow no change to enter into your ego, your soul will find peace. This profound confusion is possible only if one maintains that the same thought system can stand on two foundations. My lesson was like yours. And because I learned it, I can teach it. I never attack your egos, and in parens, in spite of Helen's strange beliefs to the contrary, end of parens, but I do try to teach them how their thought systems have arisen. When I remind you of your true creation, your egos cannot but respond with fear. Bill, teaching and learning are your greatest strengths now because you must change your mind and help others change theirs. It is pointless to refuse to tolerate change or changing because you believe that you can demonstrate by doing so that the separation never occurred. The dreamer who doubts the reality of his dream while he is still sleeping is not really healing the level split. Hmm. All separation anxiety is a symptom of a continuing will to remain separated. This cannot be repeated too often because you have not learned it. Bill, you are afraid to teach only because you are afraid of the impression your image of yourself will make on other images. Holy cow, yes.
Uh-huh.
You believe that their approval of your image will exalt it, but also that your separation anxiety will be increased. You also believe that their disapproval of it will lessen the separation anxiety, but at the cost of depression. Wow. Jesus,
All
what?
this, all the sneaky ways that we try to make ourselves miserable just to prove that we have a separate self, just because we think that there's some kind of benefit that we still might possibly get from that separate self that we made, not created, but we made that has never made us happy, and that we're afraid to look at honestly.
Yeah.
Pretty
I mean,
wild, huh?
yeah, Jesus is really doing a deep dive into Bill's consciousness, but but also into ours as well, when we're
Hmm.
looking at it and seeing all I mean, this is some really nuanced discussion going on here.
Hmm.
Um, but the main thing that he's saying is, if you teach it, you will learn it. If you teach it, you will learn it. And we all know that, teaching and learning, uh, that's how I've learned everything I've ever learned. In fact, I have a teacher in my head that if I'm making biscuits, that teacher is teaching someone how to make biscuits, is going through the steps and saying, now we level off the cup, whatever, you know,
Hmm.
uh, because I'm always talking to myself. So, and it is literally a teacher who is telling the steps of how to do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so Jesus says, Bill, if you will to be a devoted teacher rather than an egocentric one, you will not be afraid. The teaching situation is fearful if it is misused as an ego involvement. If you become afraid, it is because you are using it this way. But the devoted teacher perceives the situation as it is and not as he wills it. He does not see it as dangerous because he is not exploiting it. I need devoted teachers, that is Bill, as much as I need devoted priestesses, that is Helen. They both heal the mind, and that is always my own aim. The soul is far beyond the need of your protection or mine. The biblical quotation should read, in this world, you need not have tribulation because I have overcome the world. That is why you should be of good cheer. Bill's course was very carefully chosen because abnormal psychology is ego psychology.
Hmm.
This is precisely the kind of content which should never be taught from the ego, whose abnormality should be lessened by teaching, not increased.
Uh-huh. The blind leading the blind. Is that what he's talking about?
The
Oh,
unhinged
guess we've
healer.
been tag. We've been identified here.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hilarious.
Uh-huh.
All right, hang on. Let's do this real quick. All right. You, Bill, are particularly well suited to perceive this difference and can therefore teach this course as it should be taught. Most teachers have an unfortunate tendency to teach the course abnormally, and many of the students are apt to suffer considerable perception distortion because of their own authority problems. And I'm just going to stop here. And we can talk about this for a minute too, because yeah, I think he's obviously talking to Bill in his situation where he's going to be delivering a course, I think, on abnormal psychology.
Hmm.
But he's also talking to us also who assume ourselves to be teachers and and you know how teachers teach the course abnormally, and I see that all the time too.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's why he gave us Ken really to show us how the teacher should teach, right?
Yep. Yep.
um
Yeah. What a stellar example. I mean, he was so consistent. I was always amazed when, I knew about his work back in the mid '80s when I first started reading the course, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it until I read Gary's first book, Gary Renard's first book. And then he mentioned and raved about Ken, and I said, I need to go back and sure enough, I just plunged headlong into Ken's work after that. But and still to this day, more so even. But but what I noticed when I started really looking into Ken's work and the historical span of multiple decades is that, he didn't his style kind of evolved over the years, but the content that he was aware of, um, very much was kind of, intact in full
yeah, it didn't
full
waver.
splendor from the get-go. So
Yeah,
when he got the course, he really got it and early on. And I think the probably who knows how many lifetimes of preparation, but when he would intended to be a monk, and then when the course came along, it was like, oh well, this is obviously what my life's work's supposed to be. So
yeah,
anyway,
this is
thank
my
you, thank you,
monastery.
Ken, and thank you, Lynn, and thanks for another wonderful discussion like we have every week. I really
I know I have to
appreciate
make
it.
this. I love it, and thank you, Bruce. I hope you're having a wonderful summer. As I said, August. Well, you aren't going to be here uh next. Is it
The
next
Labor
Saturday?
Labor Day weekend. I think next weekend we'll both be here, right?
Okay, we'll both be here next
And
weekend.
and
That's
then
right.
then 2 weeks after that we'll have to fill something
Yes.
with you.
So that
Yeah,
and I'll be gone to Scotland. So,
yeah. Have
all
a
right,
great trip.
I'm going to. I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah.
excited. So, uh,
Start in on your brogue early.
yeah. I have been listening to Scottish TikTok so that I can
Oh,
understand what
oh
they're
gosh.
saying. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.